Welcome to the Driven to Succeed Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Olson. And today I have a special guest from Coldwell Banker Realty, Jessica.
Hello.
Jessica, thank you for coming on. We met a few weeks ago and I was excited to have you on because I've been following you. I think I started following you when you are like really watching what you have because you have like the house of the week, right?
I do, yeah.
And it's fantastic. I mean, some of them are like crazy. Um, but I feel like I do a lot of like now I do like all the black homes. And so I'm sharing those constantly
Oh,
in
yeah, I've
barn
noticed those actually.
dominiums, right?
Yep.
And I get more traction off of that than anything else, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, I agree, yeah.
yeah, so kind of I like that. I like because I don't think I don't know of any other agent that actually has that does that.
Mhm.
So I kind of rip mine off of what you do, but just different.
Cool.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But following you and conversing a little bit and looking at and meeting and get to look at what your goals are and get to know a little bit more about you was the reason why I wanted you on the show. Um, because I feel like you have a lot to offer. You've been in the business for how many years now?
Almost 13 years.
I was gonna
Yep.
say 12,
March will
13
be
years.
13 years.
Oh wow.
Mm.
Right. So you came in, that would put you right in after the crash,
Correct.
right?
So things are still kind of coming out of that a little
Yes.
bit, though.
Yes. So and by this time, after doing it for more than a decade, you've kind of seen it all.
Seen a lot. Been through a lot.
And there's things that change all the time. So you're like, oh, I've never seen that before. We could say that almost every
Oh,
day
every day.
sometimes,
Yeah.
right? So,
Every day.
but what's recently happened and what I wanted to talk to you about is why is now a good time to buy? Specifically, when we talked a few weeks ago, rates were at its peak.
Right.
In the last like month, they've come down considerably, right? And I was just running the numbers yesterday, and literally, when we were talking 8% interest rate, and now I just locked, someone yesterday at 6.75, and we're in the sixes already.
Right.
That's huge. And so I was running some numbers, and like on a $500,000 house, you know, from an affordability standpoint, let's just say a principal and interest payments, what I was showing on a $500,000 house, I'd like to say $3,500 a month, right? Principal and interest. Now you can literally get the house for 565. So 65,000 more house for that interest rate that is that much lower.
Right. For
It's
that small of a change.
for that small of a change in 3 weeks.
Right.
How crazy is that?
That's awesome.
Yes. So and part of this is okay, well, hey, rates are coming down. Maybe I'll wait to buy. Why do you think it's not a good time to wait to buy?
Well, it's never a good time to wait.
Right, exactly.
It's a good
Number
time
one.
to buy, right?
Right,
So if you wait, prices are going to go up, competition's going to go up.
right.
So right now, it is slower with the buyers out there. So you're in less competition. So sellers are actually willing to negotiate more right now. Come spring, house prices are going to start to creep back up. Competition's going to come back out. So I do think right now is a great time. Take advantage of those interest rates, and then you can always refi later. So people are saying that's still not low enough,
Right,
which
right.
for some it's not, but in a year or so, you will be able to refi, but those prices will continue to rise. I think they'll continue to rise.
Yeah, and I think I mean, from all of my mentors and all the people that are in the industry, that's what, is a collective agreement, right? And reason being is that for every point of interest that we go down adds 5 million more buyers to the market that can afford
Yeah.
what they're looking for, right?
Right.
So that's huge. So when we already have a low inventory problem, right? It's just only going to create more competition.
Right.
And the one thing you can't do is, you can refinance your rate. You just can't all of a sudden buy a different house, right?
Oh yeah, that price will never change.
Correct.
Well, as you build pay it down, it will.
Right. Yes. So, and there's, a lot of people, we've said this time and time again, we're sitting on the sidelines like, oh, well, there's going to be a crash. I'm going to take advantage of it. And I personally always had said, I don't think that's going to happen. Right. And nobody knows for sure.
No.
Right. We don't hold this isn't necessarily a crystal ball, but,
I had one. Yeah.
right. But by doing something sooner than later, and specifically right now, we're just a few days from Christmas, and by the time you see this, it's going to be after Christmas likely. But um, y- this is the time of year to take advantage of buying, getting and not having all that competition. And I do feel like right now we're going to hit this swing. And the Fed came out and teased 3 rate cuts this year,
Yeah.
with some people talking about potentially 6 rate cuts, right? Which is huge. But I think it's just going to create a further demand when it goes to buying,
Oh, it will.
right?
And the spring market comes too. And it's, if the interest rates come down, buyers come out of the woodwork. It's crazy. In
Right.
February, early March, like all these buyers, you're like, where were you 2 months ago?
Right.
We should have been out looking and taking advantage of the market. But, it happens. And now you're amongst a lot more competition.
Yeah, and that's where let's face it, most people want to buy in the spring, right? Is because there's this cycle. There's like leases if they're renting leases. Typically, there's more leases written in the spring than any other time of year. So
Right.
that's that cycle. School is getting out, right? Let's move in the summertime, or like maybe we don't want to move schools, or all of these different things play into that fact, and it just compounds as we go, specifically on low inventory. And I'm sure you've over the last few years, like you've been with people shopping, and like you just miss out on that first home that they really like, because they're just not used to that market environment, right? And like, hey, now we got 10 other offers on the table. What's it going to take to get this house,
Yeah.
right? So going back to buying now, right? So like most of my clients right at this moment all have seller paid closing costs or got big deductions on the actual purchase price.
Hmm.
And that's when people are like, "Hey, it's going to crash." That's the beginning of the crash. This is
Right.
what happens. And if you look at over the last, oh well, since they start tracking it, what does that price do every fall, every winter? It comes down, and because there's less buyers in the market. What kind of tips do you have for buyers out there, specifically right now? Like, because we talk about like 2-1 buy downs to help. Okay, if you are concerned about that rate, like say that rate is 6.75, 2-1 buy down, you get the seller to pay 3% closing costs.
Mhm.
That first year rate is like a 4.75% interest rate. Um, and then the next year is 5 point. That's what the 2-1 buy down
Yeah.
is, right? The next is 5 year 5.7, and we feel like the over the next 36 months for sure, rates are going to be a lot lower than they are today, and you'll just refinance into a permanent fixed rate at that point.
Hopefully by the second year,
Yes,
of that buy down, you'll actually have the opportunity to refinance and then you'll
right,
actually be lower than that
right.
last buy down.
Bec- And what will happen is, in my opinion, because of the pent up demand, and let's face it, there's a major pent up demand for housing, and we're so short on homes to begin with that as rates come down, it's just going to fuel more and more people
Mhm.
to go, right?
Right.
And you're going to be running a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um as far as like advice for, people doing things now, like say they have an existing home. Do you see a lot of people renting those out now, or
I see a little bit of both. I
yep,
mean, I have some clients that have decided to rent them out and purchase. Some, want to sell and purchase. A little bit of both
sure,
in that.
sure. Because I think, right now, like specifically, and that's the reason why there is not as many homes is on the markets, people don't want to trade a 2.75 rate in for 8,
Right.
7, even 6. Um, and you're like, and so they're like, well, and I've talked to a few people and well, have you ever considered, well, just keep that home because it's such a low interest rate and the values are going to keep going
Yep.
up,
Right.
right?
Right.
And if you can put together, like say 5% down from, 401k or money you've saved up, or even take the funds, on a home equity line of credit to buy a new home, you can subsidize your cost on the new home, because you're renting out this, and I've showed, a couple times I've showed people like, okay, how much do you think you could get market rent in your house right now? So we look it up, all 2,400 bucks, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, this area, whatever, right? What's your payment on it? Well, right now it's 2.75, so it's like 1,700 bucks. Like, well, now you get $700 a month cash flow.
Yeah.
That eats up a lot of that rate that you're paying on the new one. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Well,
it buffers it.
yep. And then
And well, you don't need 20% down to buy it because
mm,
it'll be your homesteaded house.
again, it's amazing to me, like some of the myths that are out there. And obviously, when we're in the industry, we know this stuff, right?
Right.
But so many people mm, believe that you have to have 20%
I
down,
just had a client the other day that said that to me. I was like, no, you could do 5% and it's not
right?
a conventional loan. And he
Yeah.
was like, what? I was like,
Yeah. And
yeah.
in some cases, 3%,
Mhm.
I mean, um, both Fannie and Freddie will allow for 3% depending on the situation and approval, but they also have Home Possible, Home Ready. That's 3%. That's less than 3.5% down FHA. So it's amazing what we can do in insurance and mortgage insurance. Well, I don't want to pay mortgage insurance. I got to have 20% down, right? And then when you show them like the cost of mortgage, so mortgage insurance it has really had a bad name for a long, long time. But one of the things that the crash did um, was it made those companies because mortgage insurance. A lot of people literally think, okay, I got mortgage insurance, so if I have problems, that's going to protect me. Not the truth.
No.
It protects the bank, right? Because you didn't put the 20% down.
Right.
So it covers any negative equity that you may have in that situation. That's what happened in the crash, right? But prior to that, mortgage insurance costs were super expensive. But when the crash happened, one of the things that regulation came through made all these companies have to have so much cash. I think it was they had to have $2 billion cash on hand so that if a crash happened again, they could cover those losses, right?
Okay.
That was huge. So what did that do? Well, as values kept rising after the crash, and all these companies had all this money, well, they could start lowering those policies, and then it kind of got into that capitalism free fall. I shouldn't say free fall, but where, well, hey, this mortgage insurance company is that much cheaper, so they kept lowering the rates. So I guess what I'm getting at is like sometimes right now you can get if you have a very good debt to income and you have a high credit score, you can get insurance policies with 5% down, a mortgage insurance policy that's like $120 a month,
Right.
right? Like, oh, really? That's it? Like, and think about this. And this is where a lot of financial advisors, and I think they got away from it a little bit because the rates are so high, but a lot of financial advisors are just advising people like, hey, don't put 20% down, do 10% down, then put 10% in a money market account
Save it. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
save it that
Mhm.
way, right? So it went a long ways as far as, um, with that affordability factor. Like you could, $120 a month in the grand scheme of things is really, and obviously you're trading, well, I need to have a payment at like $2,500 a month, but you're doing 10% down more. So there's a trade-off in it where it's like 2,700 bucks. But now if you're putting 10 grand into another money market, can you make more than 200 bucks a month in that?
Well, like you were talking about with the rental too,
Right.
right? So that could be buffering it so that they can build,
Mm-hmm.
equity on that one and then pay it, they can easily afford that at that point.
Yes, yes. So over the years, you've worked with investors, right? And you've become an investor yourself,
I have.
right?
Mhm.
And so one of the things I wanted to bring up with you is like you bought a property in Florida.
I did.
So tell me a little bit about that. Like,
So
the,
right back to excuse me, when's a good time to buy? Well, we wish you about 2 years ago, but you're always going to say that. So we took the leap and we decided we were going to start looking into to have a short term vacation rental. And so we kind of started looking. We knew we wanted to be on that side of Florida. So we kind of started deciding, what we needed and where we wanted to be. So we got a realtor down there that helped us purchase, but we actually bought one or put an offer in on one that was sight unseen. So we did a virtual tour and so we flew down after getting this offer accepted and we hated the neighborhood. We
okay,
were like, this is so bad. And actually the agent that did the tour, I asked her about the neighborhood and she did not share with me the
right,
information I really needed.
sure,
So we, excuse me, we actually decided to pull the offer on that and we started looking and we found the one that we did offer on.
right,
And we closed on that in May of last year.
nice,
So it took a little bit of work to get it to where it is. It took a lot more work than I actually thought it was going to be.
Sure.
So when you're thinking of actually furnishing a home, like you usually have stuff, right? You've been in rentals, so you bring stuff with you. This was from scratch.
Right. Right.
This was from complete scratch. So, we took the leap, we, made the purchase. Well, now we have to decorate it. We got to supply it with everything. So we've invested a lot of time and money in it. But real estate investing is always a positive, right? So
Right.
that's the goal. The objective is to, pay down the mortgage, make money in the future. And then as for the short-term rental as well. But so anyways, we had the first part of our adventure, you can call it, didn't go so well.
Right.
We were really slow to getting the renters in there and getting it up and running. And we decided to cancel with the company that we were working with at the time. We just didn't feel that they were doing what they needed to be doing to help us get renters in there. Kind of took it into our own hands, and now we're actually booking it up. And we have about 8 different reservations, and we've filled up all of December, all of February, half of March, part of January,
Oh,
bookings into July.
that's
So it's
awesome. Now, so do you think that what booking it up like that is that going to cover like just even those that you got? Is it going to cover like your expenses for the year?
so that's the objective, right? So
Right.
because Florida, it's a
Right.
little different. So
Sure.
slower in the summer,
Right.
right?
Right.
We Yeah, so this whole front part, we've been putting money into the account,
Right.
like, we've been
Sure.
paying
Sure.
not
Exactly.
paying any money out,
Right.
right?
Right.
So we're like, "Okay, this really is not going well." But now we're like so now we're making, like, more than we need to cover for monthly, so we're hoping that that'll buffer throughout the rest of so if you make a
Right.
little bit less in some months and a little bit more in other months, that it kind of weighs it out. And we're not looking to make money on a yearly basis as much as
Sure.
we are, like, long term, right?
Right.
Kind of pay what we
Cover your
need to.
expenses
Yep, cover
and
everything and
yeah, and
have
then
a investment later on in life where we could sell it.
15, 20
Yeah,
years down the road, you have, I mean, in Florida, you have a great little nest egg,
right,
essentially, right?
right.
So with that being said, like you being a first time investor in outside of the area
Mhm.
in a short term rental, like what are the tips? What are the first thing you like now that you've been through the pitfalls, right?
Right.
What are your tips that you would have for somebody thinking about getting into that market? What would be the first thing that they would do?
Well, make sure you have a good realtor.
Right?
And not that the realtor that officially helped us, she was great, right?
Right.
But the first couple that were showing us things were like, there was no guidance, right? So I'm totally different when I show homes, do things, I'm like pointing things out, explaining things, like helping people understand different components of a home, right?
Right.
So
Right.
no help in that arena at first. So make sure you have a good realtor.
Right.
That's going to help you give you guidance. Learn the area. Like know what we didn't realize that Cape Coral was so flooded with short-term rentals that we had no clue, right?
Sure.
So now that we've kind of gone through this training and are doing, all this to understand it, there's thousands of vacation rentals there that we're in
Right.
competition with thousands of
Right.
other homes, single family homes with pools.
Right.
So, but there's a lot of competition there. So kind of know your market, know what your objective is, know who you're going to be renting to. Like think about all that before you go into the project. And then when you're planning on furnishing and doing all those things, like get your budget set, but then add like 10 grand at
Right.
least to it. And then, just take the time to look at, different areas and properties, get a good understanding. Just there are programs out there that can help you learn how to find out what would be a good rental,
Sure.
how much money you can expect to get from it and actually like do your due diligence.
Right. Because you started off with a company and that was like, oh, we'll market this for you, we'll take care of everything, and blah blah blah, and they didn't even get like bookings.
Big joke. Yeah. We had
Yeah.
3 bookings from June until August.
Yeah.
So in which I know it's a slow month, we get
Sure.
that,
Sure.
but I mean, we already have a booking in July, right? So and
Right.
it's December. So
Right.
it's like it's a little
Exactly.
different, but
Right.
what we found was that they were not so Airbnb is really specific. Like you have to like keep changing things and you have to do like have all these photos on there. And basically like what we do for listings,
Sure.
right? You write underneath all the photos, you have them set up strategically so you kind of move through the house, you have all the information in there Well, the company we were with, they had none of that in there.
Right.
Like, they had a fraction of the amount of information showing in
Right.
there, but that's not even tried telling them. I'm like, "I'm a realtor.
Right.
I know how to market a home. Like,
Right.
why is this not on here? These pictures are horrible." Like, and they argued with me. "Well, we know what we're doing." Okay. So then, months go
So
by and we're like, "Nobody, is looking at our stuff." So when I did it myself and actually took the time and did it my own, got professional photos, did the drone, did all the stuff, and set up all the photos and all the things I needed to, and marketed the home. Or
right.
like, okay, we're actually getting renters in there, and it's fun. It's fun to see it change, right? And actually be like, okay, we didn't to go totally fail on this.
Right. Well, and it's a journey. It's like anything else. So the first time you do something, I'm a big process person, and it goes back to even when I got divorced. The process of like from the actual divorce to me actually getting right in my own state. So again, and then going
Right.
back and moving on, right? So everything's a process, right? So when you're a first time investor, and I think many people, and probably this company even got kind of lulled into like Airbnb took off and it was just easy. And then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
That was before it was flooded with people doing the same thing. I remember hearing like 6, 7 years ago, like kids that I mean, I call them kids, but they're are adults, but they were like 23, 24 years old with like 100 properties, where they just started doing it. And then guys that were like, "Oh, I rented a house for a year and then I would lease out rooms and like Airbnb it." And they're like, now that stuff got cracked down quite a bit. But again, it's a process. So as a first time, I guess what I'm trying to get back to is you went through it the first time. Now you know what to do. So now you can advise other people.
Mhm.
And have you ever considered getting your license down there once?
Yes, so we have a few kids left to graduate.
Yes.
So we got a few years left of that, and then, yes, we've contemplated the real estate, like, what they do down in Florida. We're like, "It's so bad." Like,
Right.
the way we market and do things here is, like, night and day. Like, we'd crush it
Right.
down there.
Well,
Like, literally.
and that's why I'm asking because I know other people like that work down there, and it's night and day. And I go, I guess when I travel in the South, and everybody talks about Minnesota nice and so
Mhm,
forth, right? And but there is a difference. Like just walking into a normal store and talking and conversing was like the cashier is just night and day difference here
mhm.
versus there, right? Um, but so like, having your license down there in the future and being able to go through these, and that's gonna be huge for you. Right.
On the program that we opted to do and kind of go through to learn the processes, we're like, we could actually do this for other people,
Right.
because we learned so much. And we are good at what we do as realtors, right? And it carries over into the marketing aspect of VRBO, right? And so we've
Hmm.
learned enough of that. But yeah, I mean, I think that we would like to spend, our winters down
Down
in
there.
Florida,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, getting our licenses there and doing that is definitely a future goal.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I look forward to you seeing your growth, not only here. I predict like 2024, just a few months ago was like, oh my God, it's dire predictions, right? And it's amazing what happens in a couple of months because right
Yeah.
now it's a very, very different optimistic look on what 2024 is going to be. And do you feel the same way?
I honestly, I've heard, so a lot of people have been, saying how slow. I've been steadily busy, like, I've
Right.
stayed busy. I try to stay on the positive side.
Right.
I think everyone needs to buy homes for one reason or another. There's
Right.
always, there's divorces, there's people, passed away, they outgrow their homes. Like, there's always people are needing to buy and sell. So
100%.
I think that it's gonna be tougher. The market's gonna be, shift for the next year, but I think it'll be kind of continue to move along.
And it really comes back to expertise. I mean, and I think we needed it, as fast as it kind of went through COVID, the beginning of COVID, and the last couple of years, people like, oh, it's easy money, get into it.
Yeah.
Lenders for sure. Rates drop, you're like, hey, I'm gonna become a lender, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I can
That was
finance
easy. Yeah.
everybody in my family and make a good living, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And I think the number I looked at, and this is like literally licensed real or mortgage people were down like 40,000 in the
Yeah.
last 18 months,
Same
right?
with realtors. Yeah.
So, and I think that's a good purge. And then it comes back to you're working with real professionals. I'm not saying, I feel like there's a few of those that didn't make it, and it was just circumstances. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't that they weren't good. It just you don't have that full behind you of years of experience along with a team that's going to help you succeed. And
Right.
if you didn't have that, you're going to get kind of weeded out. But so I think it's good, and it just comes back to like any job. A lot of it is experience, a lot of it's time, and as mortgage, real estate, as we build our business, our portfolio, our client base, and staying in front of them, and that's why I built this podcast, is to make sure that I'm always giving relevant content, right? And bringing new people in. And because my goal is for everybody is to increase everybody's business, right? Because that in turn helps me,
Right.
right? So, but I think there's more optimism on just, even just the news channels. Because 3 months ago, it's rates, 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 for the last like year plus, and it just put this real negative factor
Right.
out there, right? And now I feel like we've gotten past a lot of that. Hey, it is what it is. We're going to start settling back into normal rate environment, not a COVID rate
Mhm.
environment, right? So if the people that, I'm probably gonna stay in my home for a while, and I get to take advantage of that low price. But if I did, like, something in my life changed where you're growing your family, kids, you do have to get out, or rent that house out
Yeah.
and move. So it's all about market share is really what it comes down to, experience, and being able to help people out, and do what you do, right? And love what you do. That's first and foremost. And I feel like, in kind of gotten into this tangent by talking about Florida, that the agents down there, because of all the people flowing into Florida, it was easy money,
Right.
right? And they don't have to do a whole lot, right? And it's like, it's like, 400,000, $500 million property on the water. I mean, it's easy money, right? Like, and then they're arguing with, like, I have a feeling, and this is just speculation, the company that you work for, that was just easy because, like, oh, we just throw a few pictures on here, people go to the website. Well, now it's much harder because there's many more people doing the same thing,
Right.
right? So you found a good company. So any of you people that you're thinking about this, and if you want to just reach out, do you mind if they reach out and say what companies like you use, or
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
because I'm assuming there's Coldwell agents down there, you can hook them up as well with another agent down there, because they're not licensed there yet,
Right.
but
I have good referrals. I have good agents now.
yes,
I can work
yes, that's good.
with.
Um, anyway, Jessica, I'm very happy to have you on. I'm looking forward to your future success.
Thank you.
I'm gonna watch it. And anybody has any questions, if you're ready to buy now, and so real quick before we go, you're kind of the South Metro, but I'm sure like every agent you work around the entire Twin Cities, right? You're South and kind of Wisconsin, so you're licensed both Wisconsin
Right.
and Minnesota, right?
Correct. Mhm.
Awesome. And more in that Hudson areas where I think Hudson and Lakeville is kind of in between, or
Yeah,
Princeville.
those would be my home base, I
Home
guess you could say.
bases,
Yeah.
yeah, right. But again, you can
Yeah.
work anywhere.
Surrounding cities on both. So St. Croix River Valley and then south of the river is what we kind of call that, main area. But I work all over the cities and surrounding areas.
Yeah. And you've done it a long time, so you know the area, different spots in the
I
cities,
do.
the better spots, things of that nature. So, going back to, if you have any questions for Jessica in particular, whether it's investing, whether it's primary resident, what to do, please reach out to her. You'll have contact information below. But like and subscribe. And Jessica, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.